Welcome back to the Runner's Paradox podcast. Today we're digging into Chapter 11, The Pursuit of Excellence. And this really gets to the heart of a big question for any runner, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's that core tension, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is excellence something you, achieve?
Yeah.
A finish line? A podium?
Right, like a medal you hang on the wall.
Or is it more like a direction, something you keep moving towards, even if it feels like it's always just a bit out of reach?
That's the paradox we're diving into, because the chapter argues pretty strongly that thinking of excellence as just a static goal, like a specific time or winning, that's maybe not the most helpful way to frame it.
It frames it as much more layered. We're talking discipline, sure, but also identity, commitment. It's about the pursuit itself. Chapter 11 really unpacks that.
And it's so easy, especially when you start out, to get caught up in the external stuff, the outcomes. You want the PR, you want to beat someone, you want that validation.
Oh, definitely. And tying your whole sense of self-worth to hitting those external marks. Well, the book suggests that's a bit of a trap. It can lead to a lot of frustration down the line.
Yeah, it's almost counterproductive, setting you up to feel like you're failing even when you're making progress.
Exactly. And the beauty here, I think, is shifting excellence away from just pure performance. How fast did you run today? And grounding it more in the process, the commitment, the discipline.
Making it something you actually own rather than something that depends on a race result or what other people did.
Right. It becomes internal. And Ying anchors this whole discussion so well with that personal reflection early on about looking at other runners.
Oh, yeah, the part about the Kenyan athletes feeling like she didn't have the right body type.
Exactly that. Questioning her potential based on, physique, the skinny legs and long strides. It's such a relatable starting point.
It really is, because who hasn't done that? Looked at someone who seems naturally gifted and thought, well, I don't look like that.
And that's the initial mistake, right? Seeing excellence as this fixed, almost genetic thing, something you have or you don't, based on how you look or, external markers.
Instead of looking at the engine inside, the effort, the mindset, that's the real driver.
That's the shift in perspective the chapter pushes for. Moving away from comparing ourselves externally to champions, to times, to body types, and focusing inward on our own effort, our intention, our consistency day in, day out.
Because if you don't make that shift, you're kind of stuck comparing your personal journey to someone else's highlight reel or maybe even their genetic lottery ticket. It's a battle you can't really win.
And framing it internally, focusing on that consistent effort, builds a much more resilient relationship with running. It works whether you're aiming for the Olympics or just trying to finish your first 5K. It's about that continuous recalibration.
Which is why we find this chapter and the whole book really so valuable for runners at any level. Just a reminder for everyone listening, our exploration today is grounded in the runner's paradox. If you want to dive deeper into defining and pursuing your own standard of excellence, you can find more info and grab a copy of the book over at therunnersparadox.com.
Okay, so let's really unpack that difference then. Effort versus outcome. Success versus excellence.
Right, because on the surface, they sound similar. Success, excellence. People use them interchangeably all the time. But for an athlete, especially an endurance athlete, the distinction is, it's crucial.
It really is. Let's start with success. How does a book define that? It's always measured against something external, right?
Yeah, inherently relative, as the book puts it. It needs that outside proof. Achieving a specific time, hitting a BQ, winning your age group, getting on the podium.
It's objective, quantifiable. You either did it or you didn't. And it often depends on factors outside your control.
And that's where it gets tricky, particularly in running, because success, in that external sense, is scarce. There's only one winner, only 3 podium spots.
Which automatically sets up a comparison game. Your achievement isn't just about your effort. It's measured against how everyone else performed on that particular day.
And that, as the book points out, can be pretty corrosive. If your self-worth is totally tied up in beating others or hitting a certain rank,
it becomes fragile. Your value feels dependent on someone else's performance. You could run the race of your life, a huge personal best.
Yeah, something you trained months, maybe years for.
Exactly. But if 3 other people in your category just happened to run even faster that day, and your goal was purely success in terms of placing, suddenly that amazing PB feels like a failure.
Ugh, yeah. That's a tough feeling. It mentions that on page 39, right? That this kind of relative success can actually eat away at your self-worth.
It creates this exhausting cycle. You're always looking over your shoulder, always comparing. The goalposts keep moving based on who shows up, the weather, the course. It's just not sustainable emotionally.
A recipe for burnout, definitely.
Yeah.
So the alternative has to be excellence, defined internally.
That's the antidote proposed, shifting the focus inward.
Okay, but let me push on that a bit. If we totally abandon the idea of external success, I mean, why sign up for races? Why track our splits? Isn't there a natural human drive for, achievement? How do we balance that drive with this more internal idea of excellence?
That's a really important question, and it's not about saying goals don't matter or times are irrelevant. Nobody's suggesting that.
Okay.
It's more about a shift in priority. Where does your primary focus lie? Excellence, is defined here, is determined by you, the person pursuing it. It's not about how you stack up against others.
It's about how you stack up against your own potential for effort on that given day.
Precisely. It's about consistent, persistent effort. It's about the alignment, the integrity between what you intend to do, your goals, your plan, and what you actually do.
So it's the quality of the journey itself, independent of the finish line photo.
Exactly right. There's that great analogy in the book. Think about the amateur runner. Someone who might never win anything, never even place in their age group. Can they achieve excellence? Absolutely. If they commit fully to their training, if they give their best effort in every run, manage their recovery, listen to their body, they are achieving excellence. Even if they finish near the back, it completely reframes what mastery looks like.
I like that. It democratizes it in a way. It makes it accessible to everyone, not just the genetically gifted or the hyper-competitive.
And here's the paradoxical link, the connection back to success. If you consistently focus on putting in that excellent effort day after day,
You will get closer to those external success markers anyway. Faster times, better finishes. They become the byproduct of the pursuit of excellence, not the goal itself.
that's the idea. Excellence drives success, but if you make success the sole driver, you risk losing the excellence along the way.
So the operational part is that consistency. It needs planning, dedication. Your mind and your actions have to match up.
It's not passive. Excellence isn't just showing up, it's showing up with intention. If your goal is a marathon, excellence isn't just about race day. It's the quality of those cold, dark, weekday morning runs. It's the nutrition choices. It's getting enough sleep.
It really demands honesty, doesn't it? Am I really doing the long run as planned? Or am I cutting corners? Am I skipping the strength work because I'd rather just get the miles in?
Exactly. If effort is excellence, as the book puts it, then that daily commitment, that honest effort, that's the only thing we truly control, and maybe the only thing we should ultimately judge ourselves by.
That simplifies things, actually. It anchors you in what's within your power instead of stressing about things you can't control.
Think about it. A runner executes a perfect training block, nails their race plan, gets a huge PR. That's excellence demonstrated.
Okay, clear example.
But now consider a runner who gets food poisoning the night before. They feel awful on race day. Their time is way off, but they dig deep, manage their mindset, keep putting one foot in front of the other, and finish when quitting would have been easy.
Is that excellence too?
According to this definition, absolutely. The outcome, the success metric, was terrible. But the internal standard of effort, of commitment, of resilience, that was met. That was excellence.
That's a powerful reframing. It separates the effort from the result in a way that feels healthier, maybe? More sustainable?
I think so. It allows for a more compassionate and resilient approach to the inevitable ups and downs of running.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly, because one of the biggest challenges for any runner who sticks with it long enough is, well, change. Getting older, dealing with injuries, life getting in the way. Our identity often gets tied to a specific time, a specific race. That peak moment.
Ah, yes, chasing ghosts. It's a common trap. And when your entire running identity is wrapped up in that peak performance window,
Yeah.
when age inevitably slows you down or a major injury takes you out of competition, the loss can feel devastating. It's not just that you can't run fast anymore. It can feel like you've lost who you are. The book touches on this quite deeply.
It's an existential hit for some people. And Ying shares that really poignant experience of how people kept seeing her only as Ying, the gold medal winner.
Right, freezing her identity at that one point in time, ignoring all the growth, the changes, the wisdom gained since then. It highlights how the outside world often values that peak achievement above all else.
Which must feel incredibly isolating and frustrating.
And the challenge isn't just external, it's internal too.
Yeah.
It's hard to let go of that faster, younger version of yourself. There's often a grieving process involved.
Definitely.
But that confrontation, that feeling of isolation, forces a really important realization. Your fundamental value isn't tied to a race result. It's not tied to what other people think. It's self-created. Ying discovering that for herself is maybe the ultimate form of mastery.
So this leads us toward building a, what did you call it? A wiser, more flexible mastery.
Yeah, something like that. It starts with accepting reality. Running at 40 or 50 or 60, it's just fundamentally different than running at 25.
Yeah.
Your body changes, elasticity decreases, recovery takes longer.
Yeah.
You can't fight physiology forever.
Trying to follow the same training plan you did 20 years ago is basically just asking for trouble.
Pretty much. You're inviting injury, frustration, burnout. The excellence of the mature runner isn't about replicating the past. It's about adapting intelligently to the present.
Which means, what does that look like practically?
It often means shifting focus. Maybe prioritizing strength and mobility more. Maybe accepting life high-intensity work and focusing more on consistency. Definitely means respecting recovery far more than you did in your 20s.
That makes sense technically, but there's an emotional hurdle there too, right? Giving up those blistering track workouts or accepting slower long runs can feel like you're giving up a piece of your identity, if that identity was all about speed.
It absolutely can feel like a loss. But here's the empowering part. Even when facing physical decline, you always control your response, your attitude.
You choose how you frame it.
Exactly. You can choose to mourn what's lost, or you can choose to embrace the wisdom and perspective that comes with experience. That choice is where the power lies.
So maybe true excellence, as we age in the sport, becomes less about raw speed and more about adaptability, resilience, the ability to redefine goals.
I think that's a huge part of it. Finding strength in morphing your running identity rather than clinging rigidly to a past version. Maybe the mastery of a 50-year-old runner isn't breaking records, but the sheer, sustained discipline of showing up year after year, injury after injury, adapting and finding joy in the process.
That sustainability, that feels like a much deeper, more meaningful kind of excellence, something that can genuinely last a lifetime, not just for a few peak years.
That's the goal, isn't it? A lifelong, healthy, fulfilling relationship with movement and with ourselves.
Okay, let's pivot now towards the actual, physiology isn't quite the right word, maybe the psychophysiology of expertise, because there's fascinating research suggesting our limits aren't always where we think they are.
Right. We tend to assume running limits are all about muscles tiring out or hearts reaching their max rate. But the idea here, supported by a lot of recent research, is that the brain plays a massive role. Our perception of limits is constantly being filtered and, frankly, often created by the mind.
So the feeling of, I can't go any harder, might be generated in the brain, even if the muscles technically have more to give.
Often, yes. The brain acts like a central governor, trying to protect the system from catastrophic failure. And tends to be quite conservative. It throws up the red flag based on perceived effort or anticipated pain, often well before true physiological limits are reached.
Our mental software is cautious, trying to keep the hardware safe.
That's a good way to put it. And the book gives that fantastic example referencing Alex Hutchinson's work about the runner who was tricked about their lap times.
Oh, right. They thought they were running significantly faster than they actually were.
Exactly. They were told they were running about 3 seconds faster per lap. And because they believed it, because they felt good, and weren't constrained by their usual mental barriers or expectations, they smashed their personal best by 9 seconds. That belief, that removal of the mental shackles, allowed them to access physical capacity they didn't know they had. It's powerful proof that perception can literally change physiological output.
Wow. So training isn't just about strengthening legs and lungs. It's also about training the brain to tolerate effort, to push back against that conservative governor.
Absolutely. Which brings us to cognitive load and mental fatigue. This is really interesting stuff. Researchers can induce mental fatigue, make people do hard cognitive tasks before exercise.
Okay.
And what they find is, physiologically, performance might not be impaired. Heart rate, lactate levels, oxygen uptake, they can be identical. But
what?
The perception of effort goes through the roof. That same pace suddenly feels dramatically harder. The brain is tired, and it makes the physical task feel overwhelming.
So a tired brain makes everything feel harder, even if the body is capable. What can we do about that? How do you train the brain's endurance?
Well, you train it partly just by doing hard things, consistently. Pushing through discomfort teaches the brain to tolerate it better. But there are specific adaptations, too. Studies on pro cyclists, for example, suggest their brains become more efficient. They conserve cerebral fuel.
Meaning they use less mental energy for the same task.
Sort of. They become better at handling the cognitive load of sustained effort. decision-making under fatigue, processing feedback. Their brains literally adapt to handle the feeling of being tired more efficiently.
That's fascinating. It's like optimizing the brain's operating system to handle the demands of endurance.
You could think of it that way. And external factors play a role too. Remember that research mentioned about music.
Yeah, listening to music helped reduce mental fatigue and lowered perceived effort.
Exactly. It helps manage the cognitive load, changes what the brain focuses on, potentially making the run feel easier, even if the physical output is the same. It's about managing the whole sensory experience.
Now, we need to contrast this idea of intelligent managed effort with something else mentioned, the zatopek pain. That romantic notion of just pure, unadulterated suffering.
Ah, yes. The legend of Emil Zatopek, pushing himself into agony, collapsing at the finish line. There's this cultural tendency, especially in endurance sports, to glorify that kind of suffering, to think that if you aren't visibly in pain, you aren't really trying.
And the book argues that's problematic.
Deeply problematic, because it encourages ignoring the body's signals rather than listening to them intelligently. It prioritizes a narrative of heroic suffering over sustainable performance and health, checking out rather than checking in.
So the runner who just grits their teeth and ignores all pain isn't necessarily demonstrating excellence. They might just be demonstrating a lack of awareness, or maybe even prioritizing looking tough over being smart.
Precisely. True mastery, the kind of excellence we're discussing, requires constant attention, adjustment, and feedback from the body. It requires what the book calls somatic modes of attention.
Somatic modes of attention. Unpack that a bit.
It just means paying attention internally, being aware of subtle pain signals, your emotional state, your thoughts, the actual physical sensations in your body, not tuning them out, but actively listening to them.
So you can tell the difference between productive discomfort, the feeling of working hard, and a genuine warning sign of injury.
That's the key skill, that discernment, that ability to listen deeply and respond wisely. That's a hallmark of true, sustainable expertise. It's not about dominating the body. It's about developing a deep, ongoing conversation with it.
Which leads us right into the ethics of this whole pursuit, that fine line between healthy passion and, well, destructive obsession.
A very fine line indeed, especially running, where the culture often rewards pushing limits, sometimes to an unhealthy degree.
So how do we navigate that? The book mentions two types of passion, right?
Yes. There's harmonious passion. That's the good stuff. It's intrinsic. You run because you love it. It enhances your life, but it doesn't control you. You maintain flexibility.
So the harmoniously passionate runner loves their training plan, but if they get sick or have a family thing, they can adapt. They can take a rest day without feeling like their world is ending.
Exactly. The passion serves them. They don't serve the passion. The dangerous flip side is obsessive passion.
And that's where running starts to control the runner.
Right. It leads to inflexible persistence. You feel compelled to run no matter the cost, pushing through injury, sacrificing relationships, ignoring warning signs. The fear of not running or losing that identity becomes the primary driver.
It becomes an obligation, a compulsion rather than a joy.
And that's often where chronic injuries creep in or burnout happens, because you're pushing past reason, past what your body can actually handle. In Ying's story about the national school's cross-country race, that's such a raw example of obsessive passion.
Racing on a serious shin split, not because she thought she could win, but because she was terrified of the question, who would I be if I wasn't running?
That fear, that identity crisis, driving the decision, that's the hallmark of obsession overriding wisdom. And the consequences were severe, weren't they?
Multiple stress fractures, months off running, a devastating outcome driven by fear, not by a pursuit of genuine excellence.
It's a stark reminder of the potential cost.
And just pausing here for a moment, a reminder that these stories, these insights into navigating passion and obsession, are explored in depth in The Runner's Paradox. If this resonates with you, check out therunnersparadox.com for the book and more resources.
So, building on that, how do we cultivate sustainability? How do we avoid crossing that line into obsession? The book introduces the idea of enoughness.
Enoughness. I like that. What does it mean in this context?
It addresses that tendency high performers often have, constantly moving the goalposts. You hit a goal, maybe take a day off, and then immediately set the next harder goal. There's no settling, no appreciating the achievement.
Yeah, the fear that if you stop striving, you somehow become less. That rest is laziness.
Exactly. Enoughness is about challenging that. It's about finding satisfaction in the effort and the process, not just constantly chasing the next external validation. It requires learning to listen honestly to your body.
Back to that somatic awareness, developing that logbook of yourself, as the book calls it.
Really learning to distinguish that good pain, the soreness from adaptation, from new load versus bad pain, the sharp, persistent, or escalating pain that signals impending injury. You have to be willing to listen when your body whispers, so you don't have to hear it scream.
And that honesty, that listening has to extend to rest, right? Which is maybe the hardest part for driven athletes. Rest without shame.
Oh, absolutely. This is critical. There's often this feeling that rest is unproductive, that you're losing fitness.
Yeah.
But rushing recovery, cutting rest days short, it almost always backfires.
Leads to niggles becoming full-blown injuries, reinforces bad movement patterns because you're compensating.
Exactly. You end up in that frustrating cycle of injury, comeback, re-injury. The book emphasizes that doing less doesn't mean becoming less. Sometimes, often, doing less strategically is the key to becoming more.
Thinking of recovery not as just passive downtime, but as an active, essential part of the training process itself.
It is training. Recovery is when the adaptations happen. Sustainability absolutely requires respecting rest, understanding it's dynamic and intelligent. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the foundation upon which endurance is built.
So maybe the ultimate expression of excellence isn't pushing through absolutely everything, but having the wisdom and self-trust to know when not to push, when effort crosses the line from building mastery to causing damage.
I think that captures it beautifully. That discernment, that self-respect, that's a very high level of mastery.
So bringing all these threads together, the internal standard, the flexible identity, the brain's role, the ethics of ambition, what's the final takeaway on this pursuit of excellence?
Ultimately, the way we approach running, the way we define and pursue excellence within it, acts as this incredibly revealing mirror. It reflects our deepest patterns, our perseverance, our relationship with ourselves.
It forces you to look inward, doesn't it? Away from just the times and the competition, and really grapple with your own mind, your own body, your own commitment. The value isn't really in the medal, it's in what you build inside yourself along the way.
It's entirely self-created value, regardless of the external outcomes. And that process of constant self-assessment, reflection, and adjustment is what leads to not just better running, but maybe a better, more resilient life.
And we really want you, listening right now, to take these ideas and apply them directly. Think about your own running, your own pursuits.
So drawing from the philosophy in the book, we've got 5 reflective questions for you. Maybe mull them over on your next run.
Okay, question 1. What does excellence truly mean to you right now in this phase of your life? Not what it meant 10 years ago, or what you think it should mean.
Question 2, be honest. Are you really chasing excellence, that internal standard of effort and commitment? Or are you maybe chasing an older version of yourself, a ghost of a past PR?
Question 3, can you pinpoint a specific time when doing less, taking that extra rest day, skipping a hard workout when you felt off, maybe even DNFing a race actually made you better in the long run? Healthier, stronger, maybe just happier?
Question 4, if you strip away all the goals, the times, the pressure, what part of your running or whatever pursuit you apply this to still feels genuinely joyful? What keeps you coming back?
And finally, question 5, who are you becoming through this process? Not just as a runner, but as a person. What qualities are you cultivating through this challenging, persistent pursuit?
These questions aren't easy, but sitting with them can really help shift your perspective towards that sustainable, internal definition of excellence.
Absolutely. And thinking about limits, perception, and sustainability leads us perfectly into our next exploration.
That's right. Next time we'll be unpacking Chapter 12, which is titled Hitting the Wall and Breaking Through It.
We'll dive deeper into the nature of limits, both physical and mental, and how we perceive them. And importantly, we'll build on today's conversation by looking at resting well.
Yeah, framing rest not just as passive recovery, but as this intentional, intelligent act, an act of self-respect that's absolutely crucial for building long-term endurance and breaking through perceived barriers. We'll explore how smart rest can actually make you stronger.
It sounds like a crucial piece of the puzzle. So that wraps up our look at the pursuit of excellence today. We genuinely hope this gives you some food for thought on your own journey.
Remember, you can find much more on these ideas in the book, The Runner's Paradox. Head over to therunnersparadox.com to learn more and get your copy.
And if you found this conversation valuable, please subscribe to the Runner's Paradox podcast wherever you listen. Maybe share it with a running buddy who might be grappling with some of these same questions.
And perhaps consider tuning in during your next run.
Until next time.
Let's run.